Hi there, my name is James. I'm a contributor to the SQL LogScout project, and I wanted to do a quick video on how to run SQL LogScout as a scheduled task. So what's the business use case for this, you might be asking? The business use case is, like, let's say you have, just for an example, a performance issue of SQL Server at 2 a.m. in the morning. Since the average person likely doesn't want to log into the server and run a capture of performance data at that time to help understands that problem, we built in the functionality into SQL LogScout to run it as a scheduled task. So it will automatically spin up the capture the data for you, and even perform cleanup at a later time. So that way you can just review the data during your regular business hours or at your leisure. So I'm going to go through an example today on how to use this tool, specifically this functionality within SQL LogScout, and some of the parameters and functionality that's built in. So before we get talking about that specific scheduled task functionality, just some quick reminders. If you want to download the package, you can go to aka.ms /get-SQL LogScout. That will download the zip to your machine. You can just move it over to the SQL server, extract it, and you'll be able to go along with me today. Additionally, if you want further information and not just download the package, you can go to aka.ms /SQL LogScout. Also, within the zip, so if you move it to a SQL server that doesn't have internet access, there's actually a readme.html file that you can open that up in a browser, and it will give you various good nuggets of information, such as the parameters like we're talking about today, requirements to use the tool. There's just a lot of great information in there. And I'll show you that really quick. So if you extract the package, so this was the package I downloaded today. So our current version at the time of the recording is 5.23.06.06. I extract it, it comes this folder. The SQL LogScout.cmd would be a normal capture. But if you go into the bin folder, the scheduled SQL LogScout task, which is which hosts the functionality we're going to be using today, that's located here. There's also the README here in the bin folder. So if I open this up, you'll see that there's nice sections here. The 14th bullet point as of today, which is the scheduled task functionality. You click on that, you can read about all the parameters. We talk about if they're required, what the default behavior is, just really good information that you're going to need to know to invoke this. As a general statement, if you forget a parameter or it's not the proper value, we will raise that as an error to you and not create the task. You correct it, run it again. So let's go into the example today. So this is the example I have. I'm just going to talk about these parameters really quickly. So schedule SQL LogScout as task is obviously the file that we're going to be using. CmdTaskName is what do you want the task to be named in the Windows Task Scheduler. So the SQL LogScout scheduled task process uses Windows Task Scheduler as its backend. So the CmdTaskName is what's created as that job name for the primary capture job. The start time is when do you want SQL LogScout to start. The scenario is what scenario do you want to capture of SQL LogScout, like GeneralPerf, LightPerf, etc. SQLInstance is the SQL instance you want to capture. So I'm on the SQL box itself, so I can use the period nomenclature. And SQL 16 is the SQL Server instance name. It's a named instance. I could see that in SQL Config Manager or services.msc. DeleteFolderOrNew, I'm going to pass the NewCustomFolder parameter to create a new folder. So you can either pass once or daily. You have to pass one of those. The most common business use case I expect is going to be once. So you run it at the given time for the given duration one time, and then that's it. If you want to run it daily, you can. So you could say you could run it for like 2 hours every day, and then you could then stop it later in the future. Just be careful if you're doing that because obviously we're going to be putting load on the server like IO, etc. So just be really conscious of that. Also, you don't want to necessarily run LogScout for hours on end. The data within the files is going to be really large. So there's some of the files may be overwritten, such as like like X events. So just keep that in mind that doing smaller captures is better. If you want to do like, a couple captures, you can actually, so like let's say you wanted to run like 2 3-hour captures every day for an indeterminate amount of time because you don't know when the problem's going to happen, you could then run this schedule SQL LogScout as task command twice to create daily jobs for 3 hours or 180 minutes, right? So just a couple of things to keep in mind. You can do that, but just be conscious and be careful. And in general, try to capture less data, not more, okay? But obviously you want to capture the issue. Duration of minutes, how long? So this is going to be literally just 1 minute. LogonType, so interactive. So if you're going to be logged into the box when it runs, you need to be using the interactive switch. If you plan on being logged off, which is the most common use case, you'll want to use S4U. And if you're curious what the interactive and S4U means, that's specific terminology to the Windows scheduled task. You can find more information here if you want to click on that link within the README. But ultimately, the big thing is whether you're logged in or logged out. And also, if you're interactive, you'll get a CMD prompt on the screen. S4U, you will not. So this parameter is required for us to make sure that we're getting the data we expect through Windows Task Scheduler. It's just playing with the interactions there to make sure we're confident we're getting the right data. So create cleanup job. So by default, we'll create the capture job, which is the name here. If you leave it out, again, there's a default name. If you want to have a cleanup job run later, then it will actually delete the Windows Task Schedule job, which is the capture job, which is this. And you can run that. You have to obviously run that after the capture has been completed. This does not, if you use the create cleanup job, it does not delete the data that was captured by the original Windows capture job, right? So you're really just deleting and doing a cleanup of the Windows scheduled task, all right? And that's all the parameters we're using today. Seems like a lot, really not too much. You don't have to change too many of them. So let's actually run this thing. So I'm going to go into the bin folder of my LogScout directory, and then I'm going to open up PowerShell, run as administrator. I'm going to go into that directory, and then I'm going to make 2 updates to the script just based on the server time. So it's 3:22 p.m. local server time. So in military time, that's 15. And I'm just going to increment it by, let's say, a minute. Hopefully I get lucky. And then 15, and then I'll do 29 as the cleanup job. Grab this, run it, press enter. And this will take a minute to create because we do have some pretty large conditional checks here. And once it is done, perfect. So you'll see that we get 2 messages here, and it already just spun up because it just hit 323. But you'll see the message here was success. We created the capture job, and then success. We also created the cleanup job. All right. So if I go into Windows Task Scheduler, so this is running right now. Sorry, Task Scheduler. You'll see that right here is my capture job, which starts at 323. And then here's my cleanup task for that job. And you'll see we print the name there. And it's going to run at the time I set there as well, which is 3:29. It has to be run 5 minutes after the end time if you're using the once parameter. Okay. So now this is done. You can actually keep this up or remove it. It's fine. Doesn't matter. And anyway, since I've been talking about this, the LogScout capture is running. Again, because it's interactive, we see the prompt. So we're just going to let that run. And this is just a standard LogScout capture at this time. Once it completes, I will show you the output folder, and then the task schedule, Windows Task Scheduler will show that it was run. And then I will also show after the cleanup job runs and the data is still there. So stay tuned. Okay, so the LogScout capture just completed. So you see the command window disappeared. So I go to Windows Task Scheduler, I refresh it. You'll see that the capture job, which is right here, says it was completed successfully. And the cleanup task has not yet run because it hasn't hit that time frame, which is 3:29. So we're going to wait 3 more minutes. But while we're waiting for that, I will show you that in the folder that is LogScout, we have now an output folder, and this will have all the data that you can now analyze. All right. Given the files that within that folder that we are capturing are based on the scenario that you chose or passed as a parameter. So we will wait a few minutes and then show you what the task scheduler looks like, and that the data remains at the 329. So it is now 329, and if I refresh, hitting F5 on the task, you'll see that those jobs are now deleted because they delete, that cleanup task will delete not only itself, but also the capture job. And if I go to the output folder, if I just do a quick little refresh, hitting F5, you'll see the data is still there. So you're able to analyze that data at your leisure. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.